tie a simple popper, and I bought these popper heads from Orvis, and they came with the hooks. They didn't say that in the advertisement, so I have extra hooks, which it's kind of nice to get them sized right and everything, because I'll let you know how I like to size mine. A little bit bigger hook. This is actually, they don't even tell you what size the hooks are, but it's got to be, let me see, let me look at my other ones. That's a 6, I believe. A 6 bass hook. So we're going to start with a yellow thread. They suggest to start with he ties this with a black 3/0. I'm going to use a yellow. Just, I don't know, the fly has a lot of yellow in, and I like to use yellow, the same color as the fly. We're just going to wrap our thread on the hook all the way almost to the point of the hook. And sorry, I got my materials a little scattered. I got out visiting a little bit. Then we're going to put the tail on, and I like to use a chartreuse or olive. I'm going to use olive today. And you get out 2 matching pair. We're going to do 2 hackles on each side, and I like to measure them about the length of the hook. So we'll cut those off. That'll just be scrap there, and strip a little bit of this material off. And we want these to be kind of convex, so they stick out. Stick out sideways, kind of like like a mayfly tail or something like that. Frog's legs. This probably imitates a frog, but you know what? I don't think it matters to bass. They're a little bit like playing or teasing a cat. If you throw stuff at them long enough, they're going to get ticked off and come up and at least take a poke at it. And it's like, if I know there's a bass in the area, what I'll do sometimes is I'll do like 15 casts to it and try a couple of different directions and whatnot. Whoops, this one's being a little unruly.
So that's 2 hackles per side?
2 hackles per side. And these didn't splay as pretty as some hackles. I just bought this hackle, but they're supposed to splay out a little bit. And trim off your excess. Then we're going to kind of measure and see that this body and how much room we're going to have for a hackle. Because now we're going to use a black hackle. And tie the hackle on just like you would a dry fly hook. And I'll generally use just 2. And all my regular dry fly hackle is like really small, so I just used this is just actually a Woolly Bugger soft hackle pack. And you want these to be about as long as the hook. I'll strip off some of the hackle fibers, and then I'm going to tie it in. And then we're going to do like, probably 3 wraps, maybe 4. Yeah, it looks like 4 for this one. And then we're gonna just tie it off. Now these flies, you can make them just as fancy as you want. I mean, I've taken time to, like, on the heads of them, on the foam heads, to paint them or buy them. You can buy them painted if you do want to go different color, because it's the same, you know, the same story. Sometimes the fish are looking for something lighter, sometimes darker. Let me clean that up a little bit. I still have some strays out here. Now generally I have heads that have slits in, these don't, so we're going to push this back. But before we push it back, I'm going to take some super glue and coat this body all the way back to that hackle. That'll kind of prevent it from sliding, and then also from this popper body sliding. And then I'm going to come up here and just do a half hitch. Let's see, where's my tool? Just like me to set it down. And then I'm going to put just a little bit more of that super glue on there, because I did kind of rough wraps on that second, third wrap I put on. Whoop. Used to using the other type of super glue. There we go. And you're going to take this body, and it has a hole in the end. You're going to force it over this eye and then just push it back to that hackle. Some of these have like a tapered side like this. See how that's cupped and tapered? You want to hurry and get it there. And then we're just going to, like, let it sit there for 15-20 seconds. One thing I forgot to do is put on my weed guard. So I'll tie one more with the weed guard while you guys are tying. But generally what I'll do is, on a lot of these, I'll use a weed guard, because you're throwing back into cover a lot of times when you're fishing for bass. And that's all it is a piece of monofilament you put on first before the tail. I don't know how I forgot it, but I did. And I'll show you how to tie one. But that's basically the fly, except after it dries good, we're going to put on some little rubber legs. And I generally put on 2 to 3. Because after a while, these, especially rubber, and I'm going to start trying to use super floss, because this rubber will rot, and I tend to keep my bass flies for years. You know, generally you're using, what, 10-pound test. But I'll get 3 of these. I'm going to tie them in a little knot, just a little simple overhand knot. Tighten it up. And get your bodkin, and we're going to try to stick that through straight and as perpendicular as possible. Now at home, sometimes I'll get a cigarette lighter and heat this bodkin up, and it helps. Make sure that hole's nice and open. Then you're going to take your threader and work that through the hole. This one's being a little difficult. And then you take your eyes, your legs, put them inside the threader. I got to have my threader open up more before they'll go in there. There you go. And now we're going to slowly pull them through. You don't want to pull it through too quick, or this stuff could break on you. So nice and slow. We're just tying flies. We're not in a big hurry. And get that knot pretty close. I like to put a little bit of super glue on this again. Doesn't take much. And then finish pulling that knot right into the body. Doesn't have to be very far in. See, I've already got some of these legs separated, but then you could take your bodkin or tip of your scissors, anything you want. Separate these legs out. And something about these rubber legs really like infuriate the bass. They're gonna like jump on this guy. I keep my legs about as long as the hook shank, so I'll pull them back here, kind of measure. I'll just eyeball those, and I'll trim them about where the hook shank ends. You don't want these way, way long, but if you do get them too long, you can always trim them. But that's the, and then, you know, if you want to tie flies to impress your friends, then you paint them up, you put eyes on. But to catch fish, this is all you need. Otherwise, you're just impressing some other fly fishers. But just a simple popper tends to work really good for bass. Okay, as I said, I forgot to put the hook guard in, so like the other fly, we start the thread. And there's several types. I've actually bought some of the steel, they have little steel guarded, little steel wire pre-tied in. Some of the bass companies tie them that way, and I've used those, but not on poppers because you can't slide it over because you can't secure this eye till later. And I'm using 15-pound Maxima Ultra Green. It's kind of stiff because you want your weed guard to be rather stiff. That's why you see those bass guys set those hooks so hard. I mean, well, some of them have weed guards in, but yeah, you just lay that right on top of the hook. You want to keep it as on top of the hook as possible. And you just follow this down the shank. And the weed guard will work better if you take the thread down a little deeper.
I've tried to do this with trout flies, and it's a great way not to ever catch another trout.
Yeah, well, trout have a very, their mouth are like their fingertips, I think. They kind of feel stuff like this. And then I would just go ahead and tie that fly. I could just tie another one if you guys would like me to, or I could just tell you how to do this so we can get tying. Then after you get your popper on, and what you do is you start your thread up here again, but then you take this, actually it's best to take this out of the vise, and just take that little weed guard, snag guard, weed guard, whatever you want to call it, and I'll just lay it up by the eye, but remember we're going to have a popper here. And you kind of size it. If you make it too big, it's really a good weed guard, but it's not a very good fish catcher. So you have to kind of go a happy medium, so you got some good guard there. So it's going to hit a weed and kind of push it off to the side. So then what you do is you just tie this down. That's why you have to leave a little room at the eye. And that's basically the weed guard. You just, now what I'd do is just clip this off.
You do that band part first, then you build the fly out, and then that last part.
Yeah, yep, you put the weed guard in first, then you do the whole fly, and you leave that weed guard sitting out here. Once you get the popper on, you can go ahead and get up here and do your whip finish, and then a little dab of super glue.